All right. Welcome everyone to a brand new episode of the Tech Forum organized by SLASCOM. I'm Asma Kadir, Senior Manager Marketing here at Gapstars, and I've been a technology marketer for a decade, and I primarily focused on digital media marketing in the technology space. And I will be your moderator for the day. So I hope you're all having a great Thursday so far, and we are about to make your Thursday a bit more productive and a bit more insightful. So I'm sure you'll have a lot of questions that you have, anything you want clarified. Please use the chat box that we have given you below so that if you have, even if you want to simply discuss it with someone who has joined us, please feel free to do that. And you can use the chat box. And we are also going live on Facebook right now. So if you do have any comments or any questions, we will also take those questions on Facebook as well. And we will discuss it at the end of the session during Q&A. Okay, so let's jump right to it. Pair programming. This is something that most of us are, of course, familiar with, and it has indeed been proven to be a more productive and agile method of working. But like all humans, of course, that's not enough for us. We always want more. We want to do things better, faster, more productive. So we are constantly on the lookout for ways and methods that can help our programmers code faster and better. So naturally, we start to think about AI pair programming and systems that support it. So today's session specially designed to make sure that we give you an introduction to OpenAI, which of course is an initiative backed by Elon Musk. I don't think I need to introduce that. I'm sure most of you all are familiar with that as well. And from there on, we will also look at how OpenAI finds and suggests code and how the use of OpenAI Codecs is significantly more capable than the others that are out there. To take you through this in detail, we have Gayan Ratnayake, who is a senior software engineer at IFS. Gayan is someone who loves and is passionate about coding and exploring new technologies out there. So who better than Gayan to take a deep dive into AI pair programming and to let us know if we need to be worried about AI pair programming or if we simply need to embrace it. Gayan, this one's for you. Over to you.
Okay, thank you, Asma. Okay, let me share my screen and start. Hope I'm audible.
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, cool. Right. Okay, cool. Let me put this in my other screen. Okay, cool. It's visible, right? The screen is visible.
Yeah, you're all set.
Okay, cool. Right. So yes, before we start the session, I like welcome all of you to the session. And does I like please all your suggestions are welcome if you have any questions, and please don't hesitate to put your questions on the chat box, like Asma said. And while we are conducting the session, also let's keep it interactive. I will ask you some things, and you can respond. Obviously, you can unmute your mic and speak, then mute yourself again, or else you can respond. Send your responses in the chat box itself. So yes, before AI pair programming, let's start about what's pair programming. I think it's basically agile practice. I think some people might have done this, especially if you are a developer. Yes, sir. Please let me know in the chat box that you are familiar with pair programming, so I also can have a little idea. I'll give a brief idea about what is pair programming. So assume that sometimes when we work, we have to write some business critical functions, some important functions, some functions that are very crucial to our solution. So at times like that, it's better to participate in groups, maybe in like 2 people, and write that function. Uh, then I think the idea behind this to be more productive. Uh, Assume that you want to write a function, and then rather than write the function by yourself, you 2 people can get together and start write the function. So the person who write the function, we call him the author, and the person who uh, look and the navigate the other person, we call him the person who the all looks. So that's basically the idea of the pair programming. So what AI pair programming is mainly, instead of 2 people, it's one programmer and an AI. In the normal scenario, we have 2 people, right? But in AI pair programming, you have one developer and AI to support you. So the AI will basically give you the suggestions. Okay, so this is a bit about myself. I'm Gayan Ratnagar, and as Asma said, I'm a senior software engineer who works at IFS. Uh, so mainly these days, I'm working with the technologies like Azure and Angular and React. Uh, but apart from this, I'm an AI enthusiast, hence this session. So yes, let's dive into the session with a little question. Okay, I think most of you here are coming from IT background, right? Maybe some of you are not, but uh, I think you are familiarized with this, right? This is a simple object in programming that you find. Uh, so if you could please tell me that um, if I ask you to, or else assume that you are working and uh, you have a requirement to search. This is basically a tree object, right? You can see you have an ID here and the parent ID children, and in the children array inside you have ID parent children. So the same object is repeated here inside this array. The object type is the same. So if you have to write a function to search this tree by ID and get that particular element, okay? search this tree by the ID and get that particular element. So the concern here is like here you have the root object, and inside the root object, you have a children array. So assume that you want to write, you have to get the object ID 62 object. So you have to write a command function, right? Like doesn't matter it's a root object or a child object, you have to get the function. So if you have to write a function like this, like what is the first thing that you would do? Maybe you can unmute your mic and answer, or else type into the chat box. What would be the first thing that you would do? Okay, right. I will give you then two suggestions. Right. I think a typical developer, like what they will do is, right, when they have to write a function like this, search a node by the ID attribute, right? You will try to write the function by yourself, right? Or else you will Google it. So assume that try to write the function by yourself. This is here we might have developers who would prefer this method. We'll call this option A, and there might be people who like the second option, Googling. So this is the option B. So could you please let me know like what type of developer are you? Option A developer or option B? Just you can type into the chat box, so you can unmute yourself and you can answer. Okay, we have option B, right? Okay, yes, 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 okay, right. So I think we have three answers, all three are option B. Even myself, I think I would go for option B, but let's discuss like why option B, right? Because this is I think for some people this looks simple enough. You have a array, you have basically a tree object, and you have to find the object by an ID from a tree. It seems simple enough. Maybe in your developing life, you might have done it previously, or you might have done it. Obviously, when you were doing your degree, we had to do things like that, right? So you might have done things like. So why instead of writing the function by yourself, you would go for the option B? Basically, I think first answer is because we are lazy, right? As people, as humans, we are lazy in nature. Apart from that, deep down in your mind, you know that like someone else have done this previously, right? In a better way, maybe. So you have a doubt about the answer that comes to your mind. So without writing the function by yourself, you opt out for the second option. So basically, in the world, in the web of the developers, assume that there are in the developer community, there are two types of developers, right? We have the people who answer the questions on web or the Stack Overflow, and we have people who refer to the Stack Overflow, the option B people. And I think this type of people is very rare. And even in my life, I have only answered Stack Overflow questions like 4 or 5 times. And for one time, I got downvoted because the answer, I guess, was not correct. The one when I provided. So, have any of you answered a question maybe in Stack Overflow? Any of you? Okay, good, good. we have one here. So I guess the rest is this group, right? The people who refer to the stack of, it's okay. We like we have to rely on web as developers a lot. So yes, let's see now. Yes, we have to rely on the web a lot. Why again? Like we will pay a little more attention. Why we have to rely on web? Assume that you want to write an email validation, right? A regex function to validate an email. So do like I don't know like how many of you remember that top of your head, like a regex to validate email. Like I don't remember it, and I believe that as developers, like we shouldn't remember things like that, because it's not uh, helpful. I mean, like you can always look it up, and uh, I mean sometimes we have to write our own regex, but even in my developing life, I think I have write maximum 4 or 5 custom regex. So whenever you have to write a custom regex, you can look it up. Maybe it's better if you are aware of the rules, the basic rules, how to develop a regex. But other than that, I think you can always look it up. So obviously, like, do you think we can rely on coding by ourselves, like without using web, without Stack Overflow, will developer exist? Or you can do your job without Stack Overflow? So yes, that's the question. And today, this is the base ground that we are laying for the AI pair programming section. Because for the pair programming to AI to suggest code, there should be a source, right? So the source of the AI is web, maybe GitHub and Stack Overflow, maybe Microsoft sites. So the data they refer and they refer to on web. So that's why we are first covering it up, like why, how much we rely on web and how important. So yes, so like I think as developers, you guys might have heard a lot of times that people may be complaining to you that okay, developers are just copying and pasting code from the web, and as an argument to that, you guys say, okay, we learned, we did a 4 years degree and we did internships and we worked for good 2-3 years just to get the knowledge what code copy and to paste. So yes, I think all are valid arguments, but let's have a look. Is it bad to refer code on web? Let's see the pros and cons. Okay. I think the most obvious one right off the bat is it saves time and it leads to productivity. Right? A lot of us, I think we work on tight deadlines. We have to like push some things. So we have to work fast sometimes. So you don't have always you don't have the freedom to research and find the answers by yourself. So you have to speed up your process. So I think that's why most people search the answers on the web and try to find the proper best solution. And it's extremely helpful when you're troubleshooting for problems. Like if someone is here who has troubleshoot exceptions, I think when you get an exception in the exception section in the object, you kind of have an idea, right? The error code and the error message. But sometimes just by reading the error code and the error message, you can't get an idea. Sometimes it just give you a error like object null reference or something like that, some vague message, right? So it's very ambiguous, the error message. So obviously the easiest solution is go to web and search for the answer, and it will save you a lot of time. Other than that, even in documentation, sometimes you have the error codes, but it's I know I think you all know by experience, it's very hard to read documentation, and sometimes the uh, organizing of the documentation is not very good. The search is not properly developed, so it's very hard to navigate in documentation. So apart from in addition to search in a documentation, it's easier to type your error in the Google and get the answer. And it points developers in the right direction. Okay, assume that you have to write a function, or you have gotten an error and you are researching, right? And without referring web, maybe you are going in the wrong direction. Maybe you are running in circles, and maybe you are running circles, and maybe you are going in the wrong way. You are following a wrong path. So sometimes when you search for an error, or when you search for some solution on web, the answer or the approach that was on your head, you beginning to think that it was misleading, right? You might have thought about in like a different way. This takes you to new levels. Web take you to new levels. Even in Stack Overflow, when you look for answers, there are multiple answers, right? Accepted answers, and you have a vote system. So you can see like highest voted answers, and you can learn a lot of things. Sometimes your answer is not as in the accepted answer, but it's in another answer, because uh, that's why I said like point developers in the right direction. So because the idea, or the initial idea you have in your head, how to approach the problem, might not be the correct one. So it's broaden knowledge of the developers. So obviously, like I said for the previous point, uh, while you're looking to correct error or look for a solution, you read a lot of stuff. So you try out new things, right? Now with this you have these hacks and everything embedded into a Stack Overflow, so you can try things out on because earlier it was a problem, right? I think couple of years ago, if you wanted to provide a certain problem, you have to provide the whole solution. Like you have to explain it, right? My environment is this, and my function is this, like this. But now with the help of hacks, code sandbox and all, you can just write your problem as a function, and you can post the link in the Stack Overflow, so the other people can open that and have a workaround. So yes, that's another pro. So we'll have a look at cons. So first one is the reliability of code. Of course, the code you copy and paste, like it might not be the most optimum solution for a problem. So obviously there is a risk about the reliability of the code. And the second one is the security related concern. So you might not know, sometimes like you will introduce some security concerns for your solutions, because you blindly copy and paste the code. So the best thing is to do is like not to do it blindly, like always like be certain about the code you copy from web and paste. Like try to understand it, like why it is like that. I know like it's not the case for most scenarios, but I think it would be the best approach. So yeah, the next two are it's not the most suitable solution, as we said. Sometimes your code might work, like assume that you have a problem and you search it on web and you just copy and paste the answer, and it might not be the most suitable solution, but since it's working, you just go with it, right? Because you know the golden rule, like if something works, don't touch it, right? So I think that's also not a good practice. Like always try to find the most optimum solution, or suitable solution. And the last con I see is, I think it's very important, lack of referring to official documentation. So I think most of the people go to the documentation as the last resort, right? First, you search your problem, or you search for an answer in Stack Overflow, Microsoft, then other sites, Quora maybe, and as the last resort only, you go to the official documentation. I don't think it's a good practice, because especially when you are like going into unknown territory, a lot of people suggest you to refer to the documentation first, right? Then like if you can't get an answer from the documentation, you should go to the web. So it's the other way around. I know it's kind of a hard way, but I think it's the most proper way, the suggested way. So okay. So next time people tell you that Okay, like developers are just copying and paste from code. Like here are two codes that you can give to them. A good artist copy, the great artist steal. Okay, like what does this mean is so you can be a good artist, right? Like if you have a problem and you can find the solution and you can just copy and paste it and get the job done and just be done with it. But that's not the proper way to do it. Like you can be like Picasso, so like be a great artist and steal from the other person. So what stealing means, you get the answer from Stack Overflow, let's say, and you understand it and you have to apply it in the proper way to your solution. Like just don't copy and paste it. Be inspired and be influenced by the answer and use it in your own way and apply to the solution without just copying and pasting. And again, never memorize something that you can look it up. That's by Albert Einstein. So yes, like things like regex and there are a lot of things in programming that you don't need to memorize, right? You don't have to like know it by heart. You can always look it up. You only have to know like how to do it, but not like what the syntax and all, what to type. Like you don't have to know it. Okay, right. Now let's slowly come into our territory. The in AI pair programming, all works as suggestions and completions. So let's have a look at what's called suggestions and code completion. So code suggestions and code completion, I think most of you have used these facilities in IDEs called suggestions and completions, right? So first, let's see what are the available suggestions and completions we have in our IDEs. Okay, first we have snippets. Then in Visual Studio we have something called VS Intelligence, and Eclipse we have called Eclipse Assist. And I think snippets is kind of a different area, but VS Intelligence and Eclipse Assist is very similar. So basically, when you type some code, and when you hit period or comma or parentheses, we call it like the trigger characters. So when you hit a trigger character like that, you will get a set of suggestions, right? When you click, when you type a object, and when you type period, you will get a couple of suggestions, right? To convert it to a string, to convert it to a like object, get the type of that. So you will get some suggestions like that. So those are not AI completions and suggestions, but AI suggestions also inspired from things like that. Okay, snippets are very important because AI suggestions was inspired by this. I think most of you have used snippets, especially if you are a Visual Code, VS Code user. If you are using VS Code for development, I think you might have used snippets. Basically, what happen in a snippet is it's a small reusable source code that you can trigger by typing some command. Even in Visual Studio, you have this, right? Like even in Eclipse you have. Like as example, if you type CW and hit tab, it trigger the command dot write line. And if you type CTOR and hit the tab, you get the constructor defined. So basically, the snippets are like that. You have inbuilt snippets in all IDEs, and for the VS Code, you can get from npm package manager also some snippets, and you can write your own custom snippets. It's very helpful. Okay, and why do we need code suggestions? Okay, right. So assume I don't know. There are people here who has code in a Notepad++, maybe Sublime Text. So if you have a coded in an environment like that, you might have experience like how difficult it is, right? Because you don't have any suggestions. You have to always refer to the documentation and write because you have to write everything by yourself. No auto completion, no suggestion. So it's very time consuming, and it takes a lot of time, and at the end of the day it's not you are not productive at all, because just to type the things out, you have to spend a lot of time. So if you have code suggestions and code completions, we can code fast and accurate because everything has been tested previously and they give us the correct suggestions. Apart from that, not having the burden of remembering and typing names of methods and classes. I think this is also very important. So because if we didn't have suggestions and completions, always, like I said, we have to refer to the documentation. And the next thing is very important to easily write code in languages you are not familiar with. Okay, assume you are a Java developer, but you want to get into .NET, right? Because you in your office or when you're studying, you have to write a .NET program, a C# program. So Java and C# both object-oriented language. So all the concepts are correct. All the concepts are similar. So you know what to do exactly, but you don't know the syntax. So assume you have a code suggestion and code completion system in your ID. Then what you have to do is like basically, right? Like you have to define a class. And after define the class, when you create the object and you hit period, you get all the things. So you are some kind of familiar, right? So when you go to code in a new language or a new technology, since we have code suggestions and code completions, it's very important. Okay, now see AI code suggestions. So there has to be a different, right, between normal code suggestions by your IDE and AI code suggestions. Otherwise, AI code suggestions, something like this would not be introduced. So let's see. Okay, AI code sessions more than just parrot back what it has seen before. It's analyze your code, right? It analyze what you have already written, and it has knowledge on what code currently relies on web. It has a data model, intelligent data model that identifies what you are going to write, and they can search it up from the data model, and they can suggest you the proper solution. Okay, and these AI models who generate code, they has been trained on billion lines of code, mostly on GitHub, mostly on public repositories. The GitHub is the largest public repository that we have. I think these data model, AI model like Codecs and GPT-3, they are very familiar with the open repositories in the GitHub. They have been trained on all of that. So it always gives you the proper suggestion. Actually, it's more accurate when it comes to some functions. So it gives you lesser accurate results. We'll discuss all that in later slides. Okay, then by passing comments, the AI model can try to figure out what you are going to write. So assume that before you write a function, most of the time you type a comment, right? What that function do? Assume that you want to write a function to add two numbers. So you put a comment and type, okay, add two numbers. So this AI is intelligent enough to identify your comment and pass that comment to natural language. Get that comment. The comment is also on natural language. So convert that to a language that machine understand and retrieve a function and provide you that add two numbers. So that is the difference between AI code suggestions and normal code suggestions. Okay, so here we have some buzzwords, right? Artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning, neural networks, weak AI, strong AI. I think most of you have heard about these things, right? But do you know like what are the differences between these things? Is it the same thing? Like is artificial intelligence and machine learning, is it the same thing? Is deep learning and machine learning, is it similar? What is a neural network? I think you might have heard about these buzzwords, but do you know what are the differences between these? Okay, let's because to understand AI pair programming, you have to understand what is an AI. So you should have at least a small idea about what is an artificial intelligence is. So let's have a small. Okay, when I say artificial intelligence, when someone says artificial intelligence, I think the idea you get in your head is some like artificial intelligence, some robot or something like that will come and destroy the mankind in future or something like that, right? Because that's what we see in movies. So you might have seen Age of Ultron and everyone. So Ultron is AI. So he's an advanced AI and he tried to destroy the universe. And this is actually Sophia the robot, an actual AI. You can see her interview on YouTube. So this is something she actually says. She says it as a joke. Okay, I will destroy the humans. But this is actual footage. Okay, we'll have a look what is AI. Okay, AI is the science and engineering of making intelligent machines so that they can reach or they can surpass human capabilities. Okay. So yeah, that's the basic idea of AI. Uh, why people want to invent artificial intelligence? Because we have a lot of people in this planet, right? Some 8 billion people. Like, why people can't do these things? Why we need AI? Because people need rest and people need to get paid. People are lazy and people have to rest, they have to sleep, they have to eat, they only can work for some time during their day. But AIs are not like that. They don't get tired. Obviously there is a cost involved when it comes to AI, but most of the cost, it's kind of an investment and we can get a lot of return from our investment. So okay, when it comes to AI, we have weak AIs and we have strong AIs. First, we'll have a look at the weak AIs. Okay. First, weak AI is kind of a algorithm. It's built into accomplish one task or maybe a few tasks, but it can't think of its own and perform some kind of a task. Okay. So basically, assume like you have heard about Siri, right? So what Siri does is when you speak to it, like it converts your voice to text, and Siri has a model. So he, sorry, not he, it has a knowledge model. So it's been trained to uh, pass your text to the data model and provide you with the response. So it only serves like one kind of task. Basically, you can look something up from web. Basically, it's voice to text conversation. Sorry, voice to text conversion, and getting some results from that. Okay. So yes, then we have some other examples too, like Alexa, same as Siri. And apart from that, this is something interesting. We have IBM Watson. So IBM Watson is mainly used in healthcare sector. Whether like assume that you have a ECG, okay? You have a ECG, and to get the results, to see how the ECG is, you have to go to a doctor, right? You have to go to the doctor, and the doctor will have look at your ECG, and they will identify, and they will give you the results. So what systems like IBM Watson can do is, we feed it a lot of data of ECGs. Not only ECGs, this is only one application. You can who can provide a lot of data of ECGs. And you can train it to identify, like give you the outcome of ECG, like how is the ECG, like is it good for you or is it bad for you? Like there are some concern in your heart. It can specifically give you like what are the concerns. And we have strong AIs. So strong AIs basically fall into the category called artificial general intelligence. That is the idea of it's when machines develop consciousness, and they do decision making by themselves on par or better than humans. This is mostly a theoretical factor at this day, but people are working toward this, right? Today also, we are mostly focusing on GPT-3 model and Codecs. Property of OpenAI. OpenAI mostly focus on artificial general intelligence. So yes, we have OpenAI and companies like Tesla. Tesla has this, you all know, right? Autopilot cars and all. For that also, you have to touch some kind of a territory of strong AI, right? So what is machine learning, right? So yes, machine learning provide a system ability to automatically learn and improve from the experience. Okay. So assume in machine learning, you can provide the data to the model. In the inception, data is like a small child. It does not know anything. You can provide data to machine, right? So this is happening in two ways. One is via supervised data. One we call supervised learning and unsupervised learning. In supervised learning, you provide data with labeled sets, right? And you get the response. You have to like uh, tell your AI, okay, when it give us the output, you have to say, okay, whether this output is correct or not. So the data set is labeled in supervised learning. In unsupervised learning, the data set is not labeled. It's basically identify the pattern. Okay, deep learning. Okay, deep learning is also machine learning, but without human interaction. In machine learning, we had to do an intervention, a human intervention, and say we had to verify the output that the model gives us, right? Okay, assume that we have, this is a famous example. Assume that we have a model that can identify dogs. We have to we want to have a model that who identify dogs. Okay, as humans, we know, right? Like after some times, obviously not when you are a kid, but after you are maybe 5 6 years or 10 years, you get input from the environment and the outside, and you get knowledge, and you know how to identify a dog, right? When you see some animal, you see the characteristics. Maybe it has pointed ears, maybe it has a nose. Like all animals has that, but you get what I mean, right? So you look for some specific characteristics, and you know how to identify it as a dog. But in infant level of AI model, it does not know how to identify something like this. So we have to provide a lot of data. And in deep learning, we are mostly doing it in unsupervised way, unsupervised learning. So we don't like go and say verify the output for the AI model. Rather than that, we pass a very large data set. In deep learning, what's it different from the machine learning? Deep learning is of course a subset of machine learning, but in deep learning, the data set is very large comparing to the normal machine learning. Okay, let's have a big look at the big picture now. So here is the artificial intelligence in the outer layer. So machine learning is a subset of artificial intelligence, and deep learning is a subset of machine learning. Okay, cool. Now let's talk about OpenAI, since our time is also running out very quickly. OpenAI, yes, OpenAI is a research and development company. They are more into the artificial general intelligence. Uh, General intelligence means the strong AI side. They are also working in the weak AI areas, but they are more into what they want to do is develop the area of strong AI. Okay, the co-founders, I will quickly go through. The Sam Altman, he's the CEO, and Ilya Sutskever, he's the chief research engineer, and of course, a co-founder, Elon Musk. I guess even Asma gave an idea about it in the beginning. So, okay, let's see the GPT-3 model, because everything starts here. Even though the codecs, mostly OpenAI codecs is used in AI pair programming, GPT-3 is where it all started. Actually, not where it's all started, but codecs started with GPT-3. Okay, it's a data model, basically AI model. AI model is basically something you can provide input, and according to that input, you can get output, right? Basically what AI model does is it do a lot of pattern matching, and it do a lot of calculations, and it has a lot of algorithms. Basically it process your inputs and give you the proper output. Okay. Right. An AI model is a program and algorithm that utilizes sets of data and enables recognize certain patterns. So like I said. So this is the basic GPT-3 model. So assume that you pass some question into that. So it can be some kind of text, right? Basically, here I'm passing, sorry, something called recite the first law of robotics. So basically, this is like a question, right? Like, so if I ask a question from a human, it understand it is a question, right? From the way I speak, it know how to capture it from my accent, from the language, because it's not the language, because human, like a person knows the language we speak, they have idea, so they know it is a question. But when it comes to AI, like they should know, like we are asking a question, recite the first law of robotics. So there are a couple of ways that they are identifying this as a question and they are processing. They are doing something called tokenization, lamenting. I think we can talk about those in another day. So basically what happens is it kind of tokenize this string and process it, and it understands this as a question and it generates the desired output. It gives you the robot may not injure the human, like that, the required answer. Okay, we'll quickly have a look at like what are the capabilities of the GPT-3. Okay, so here, right here, we are typing something called, okay, the Google logo, a search box, and two light gray buttons that say search Google and I'm feeling lucky. Okay, and you hit generate and voila, we got our output, right? And it generates the code for you also. So what it basically does is pass your text to the GPT-3 model. And the GPT-3 model has been trained to identify the patterns and identify what we just say, right? So it says, okay, a text box, type a text box, then Google icon, search box, and generate. When you hit generate, it gives us what we just typed in the text box. Okay, we'll have a, okay. Okay, it says with padding between them, right? So when we type this, it gives us the padding, and it says wider search box, and we get a wide search box. Okay. Okay, here we can write it out like we want a button looks like a watermelon and generate. So it's very knowledgeable, and by just passing our inputs, passing our comments, it knows like what to generate. It has a knowledge like that. So that's what basically a AI model does. It takes our input and process it and give the expected output. Let's have have a look at some more examples. A button that says add 3 and a button that says withdraw 5. Then show me my balance. And when you click generate, okay, give you add $3, withdraw $5. But it doesn't know that like you can't go below 0. So obviously it will give you minus answer. It doesn't have a knowledge like that. And okay, now here we have an option called give all your money, right? Give away all my money. And yeah, your balance is 7. And when you click give all my money, it knows that give away all my money means that you have to like deduct the balance from your account, right? It has a knowledge to understand that sentence. Give away all my money. It has been trained by itself, maybe from the data we have provided. It has the knowledge to do that. Okay, we'll have a look at this also. If there are any designers in the audience, this is very, they'll find this very interesting, right? This is how the future of the designing looks with AI. So you type navbar with the square logo in the light mode. The CTA is sign up. The navbar items are, and you give the navbar items, login, product, solutions, team, and help. And it generates the layout for you. And this is in Figma, and you can get this in XD also. Yes. And you describe whatever you want. Value props section in the dark mode, and the 3 value props are measure leads, mobile applications, and data security. Okay. Like whatever you type, it will generate for you. The image names, everything. The images are, of course, they are random, but you get the basic idea, right? Whatever you type here, the AI model generate it for you. And you can get the code also generated like this. Okay. Right. So it's all very fascinating, but let's see like how GPT-3 model generate this output, correct output, right? Like it doesn't generate any output. It gives us the correct output in most scenarios. So basically, in the beginning, GPT-3 is an empty AI model, right? It doesn't do anything. So what we are doing is something called, we are doing 2 things: unsupervised pre-training, and we are doing unsupervised pre-training. So what we are doing is we are giving a lot of data. So after we gives data to the AI, it will generate tokens from the AI. Then it will give us the output. Then the output, if the output is correct, we are telling the model, okay, your output is correct. What we are doing is we are like updating our AI model with the output, like whether it's correct or not. We are calling this procedure backpropagation. And we have a lot of when we talk about AIs, we talk something like parameters, right? A GPT-3 is a AI with 1.7 billion parameters. And we have like, what are these parameters? Basically, a parameter is like a coefficient of a model. So the more parameters you have in an AI model, it's better, like more the merrier. And we have something called hyperparameters, but the hyperparameters, obviously, we have to update it by human. Like they will not get calculated by themselves. The coefficient will not be calculated by itself. Okay, that's about how GPT-3 generate the correct output. So now let's go into AI Codecs. So AI Codecs is a descendant of GPT-3, and it's tailor-made for generating code. So the whole idea of Codecs is to generate correct code according to the commands, according to the input that you give. And obviously, it will translate the natural language to code. At this time, it's proficient in more than a dozen programming language, mostly with Python, JavaScript, TypeScript. But yeah, of course, it's kind of proficient in more than a dozen programming languages. And like I said earlier, it has been trained on a lot of source codes from publicly available resources, especially on GitHub. Okay, now let's talk about the spotlight of today's session. It's the GitHub Copilot program. Like this is where I wanted to come. So I gave all that background information about AI, everything, the GPT-3 model, OpenAI, and everything, because I want to come here, because I want to give you an background and come to this topic, right? Like without coming to this topic right off the bat. I hope you have the background knowledge that's necessary to understand this concept. So this is basically an AI tool that provides you code suggestions and the comments of the context that in the file you are editing. Okay, so the Copilot program is it's a collaboration between GitHub, and OpenAI. Obviously, GitHub is now part of Microsoft. They made $1 billion investment on GitHub Copilot program. For OpenAI, not for GitHub Copilot program itself. They made investment $1 billion to OpenAI. But like for that, I think they requested the exclusive right to OpenAI. So they are planning a lot of things. The Copilot is coming to Visual Studio Code first. I think after that, in the other IDs, for the other IDs also, you will get a plugin. But currently, it's like a pilot program, and you can request, you can make a request, and after that is being granted, you can use it, obviously. So we'll have a look, right? This is an example that I captured from YouTube. So we'll go and have a look. How does it work? Okay, first, like I said earlier also, you want to write a random function, right? So random number generator. So like when you type the function name, random num, it will give you the suggestion, right? You can see this grayed out area. It's the Copilot suggestion. So you can either accept this Copilot suggestion or write something your own, or else there are a lot of options available. You can select them, select from those options. Okay, we'll have a look. Right. Okay, now, yeah, you can, we are passing two parameters here, and we have options: next, previous, accept, and open Copilot. So if you can accept this solution, then it will get selected. But without accepting this one, because when you look at this, this might not be the best solution, right? Like then you can open this open Copilot option, and here we have a lot of options available, right? To do the same things, and you can get the one you like. Okay. Right now we'll see how it converts the code from the comment. So you are typing a comment, right? While you're typing the comment also, it gives you the suggestions. Create a function that generates a random number. So this is your AI giving you suggestions. So, and when you hit tab, it gives you the first line, right? You can either accept this or write on your own. When you keep hitting tab, it will go to the next line and write the function for yourself. Okay, we'll have a look. Either you can accept this answer, or this you can select from the Copilot suggestion. A Copilot button will be enabled on the bottom, so you can also click here in the bottom, right? It will be available, so you can click that and go to the suggestions box. Then yeah, you can type a comment like create a function to get yesterday's date. Like assume if you don't have a feature like this, you have to go and search this on the web. So basically what developers did, right? Like initially, like we discussed. So what Copilot does is basically bring the Stack Overflow and web to your editor. And it brings that in, it does that in a smart way, right? It gives you the accepted answer. So here, yeah, you can type create an array of numbers. So obviously, the AI will decide like how many numbers and what are the numbers, and it will give you the array. It has the knowledge to do that. And here we are typing create an array of names, and like see what it does. Okay, like it gives you 5 random names. Like it has an idea like what is the concept of names, and it knows like how many names we have to print. So all this is being done by the AI itself. It has the knowledge like a human. Like when I tell a developer, okay, you define an array with 5 names, this is what they does, right? So like same, this AI has the knowledge to do that. Okay, right. Okay, here, right? Create an array of objects with ID, name, and age. When you say that, and when you keep hitting tab, it will add line by line, right? When if you say 10 objects here, like you can hit tab 10 times, and it will generate you 10 objects in this people array. So yes. So yes, that's pretty much about it, Copilot program. But before the Q&A session, uh, like I want to highlight that there are other alternatives to this AI pair programming environments, right? There is something called Tab9, that's my insurance company, and it has been before earlier GitHub Copilot, and now it's kind of a seasoned product. And there is something called Kite. I think Kite was also acquired by Tab9. So those were the pioneers before GitHub Copilot. But the AI model that GitHub Copilot uses, the Codecs, I think it's very seasoned, and I think that's why many people are interested, right? And the other reason is Microsoft doing this, because they made a 1 billion USD investment to OpenAI just to use the Codecs, right? So I think we can expect a lot of things from this Copilot program in the future. And yes, if you have any questions, please unmute yourself and answer, or else you can type your questions in the chat box itself. And we have some questions prepared from Asma's side. So yes, over to Asma.
Yeah. So, Gayan, very interesting session. So congratulations. I think you covered the whole evolution of AI pair programming, and then of course went into depth and went into more detail. So thank you for sharing that with us. So we do have a couple of questions lined up. So let's also keep in mind the time frame. And if we can't cover all the questions right now, I'm sure Gayan will be more than happy to reach out to you personally and then drop in a response to them. So I'm just going to address a few questions, Gayan, that were there. So first one is, are there any AI models that are on par or exceed the capacity of OpenAI Codecs?
Yes, actually, there are two models that comes to my mind. One is VUDAO 2.0. Actually, in Codecs, that there are 1.7 billion parameters, right? But in VUDAO 2.0, there are 1.75 trillion parameters. So it's one of the let's say a very revolutionized product, but it's a Chinese product, as I remember. But I don't know, like at the moment, it is not open source, but there is something called Switch Transform by Google, and it also has been trained on like a 1.6 trillion parameters, and they have made it open source.
Right. Okay. Thank you. And I hope that answers the question. So there's one more question for you, Gayan. There's another one that asks us, how can we get access to the Open AI code or Jitlab Copilot program?
Okay, I think for OpenAI, you can make a request. Like if you are coming from academic background, or if you want to try it out, you can make a request, and you have to wait that request to be accepted. Then you can join. Apart from that, for the Copilot program also, I'm not sure they are still accepting the invitations, but obviously you can request for that also. So they'll get back to you. So you can use that. You can use some features of the Copilot program during that trial period. Yes.
All right. Thanks for that, Gayan. So there's another question along the lines of the legal aspect of things, right? So is there a legal process, and or what is the legal process of using the code suggestions from Open API Codecs?
Open Obviously the
Oh, AI,
GitHub repositories, there are public GitHub repositories, a lot of, so the Codex has been trained on public repositories. So I think when it comes to the legality, if it's on a public repository, we have the open license, right? The open source license, the GPT, 2 and GP3 license. So it will not be a problem, but there is a discussion about fair use of the resources, the fair use of the property. So if there is a scenario like that in the future, obviously it will be challenged in a court and the outcome might be different.
All right. So yeah, I know we have just gone about over time, but there's just one last question, Gayan, that I'd like you to answer. And I think it's something that I also mentioned in the introduction. And at the same time, I'm sure it's a question that occurs to everyone is,
Okay.
well, this is your personal opinion, but according to you, do you think developers will lose their jobs because of the intervention of AI, or what's your take on it?
Uh, like someday, I guess, but not very soon, because they are like still evolving and we have not come to the strong AI part yet. It's all theoretical, so it will take a lot of time to general artificial intelligence to be seasoned. And obviously currently the AIs can't create algorithms, right? So the human have to create the algorithms, the people has to create the algorithms. They can't develop any novel algorithms. So people have to create algorithms and teach and train the AIs. But obviously, I think there is this quote by some historian, and they said, like after some time, everyone become useless, right? A useless class. So like after the industrial revolutions, most industrial workers, they became useless with the introducing of the machines. So after some time, maybe in the future, with the intervention of AI, some people, some developers will lose their job. So I don't know when it will happen, but obviously, of course, there is a possibility.
All right.
Yes.
So like you very rightly said, like right now, I don't think that is the possibility for the moment, because of course, whatever the codes that we share is all what we do right now, right? So, all right, I think it's time for us to wrap up. Once again, Gayan, I'd like to say a big thank you to you for coming and
Okay.
sharing your thoughts and your expertise in this area. And of course, not forgetting everyone who's joined us today and all of you who shared your questions and DM'd us about your questions. We're so happy you found this useful, and thank you so much for joining this session of the Tech Forum. We do have quite a few more sessions lined up later on throughout the year. So please feel free to join us and be a part of all our upcoming webinars. And we hope you all continue to find them useful, and we'll see you again at another Tech Forum session. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.